when it comes to health and well-being. And I know men, have their struggles too, or what they think they should or are supposed to be doing or supposed to look like or whatever. But what would be something that you wish all women knew about health and self-care?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. I would just say that first of all, that like starting small is okay because I think that so often we think in our health and wellness journey that it's like we've got to go all in. And so I feel like a lot of times, whether it be January with the new year or sometimes, especially for moms, it can feel like August is almost like the secondary reset button when our kids go back to school. And so we feel like, okay, that's it. Like I'm finally going to show up to the gym, 6 days a week and I'm going to do this crazy keto diet or I'm going to do Whole30 or whatever. And it's like you go all in, but it's not sustainable. And so I really would love to encourage, especially women or moms that are so busy, just to name a few non negotiables and start there. I think that if I would have been like taught how to start habit stacking and just start with one small thing and build onto it, that would have been such a game changer for me many, many years ago.
Yeah, I love habit stacking. And I hear you on that. And I've had even just friends. I don't know if you do the audio messages with your friends, but I do that a lot. And, or even sometimes on Instagram, people will send me audio messages and it's like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to start doing this and I'm not going to do this anymore. And then this, and this. And then nobody can live up to these expectations that we've set for ourselves, or maybe we can for a few days or not. And then we get in this spiral of guilt and I should have done that and I was supposed to do that. And yeah, I love the idea of starting small and just doing one little thing at a time. Oftentimes people will ask me, how do you do all that you do? And I was like, oh, well, I did them one at a time. And I started, my journey and coaching when I was 17 and I'm going to be 36. It wasn't just yesterday that I did all these things, but I think we can get caught up in all the things and not remember that it's, one simple step at a
Yes.
time.
Yes, agree. And I think that especially for women, we do especially like once you have kids, it feels like, even if you were in such a great space with your health and wellness, which I mean, I will say that I felt like I was because similar to you, London, I mean, I grew up cheering and playing volleyball and just always was active. I didn't really know life without being active. But then when I had my first little boy, and you and I can get into this as much as you want to, but he and I'm so sorry to the men that are listening to this because I'm like, this is a lot of details and TMI. But I taught Pure Barre, which is a ballet bar based workout. It's a fusion of a very athletic approach to ballet, yoga, and Pilates in one. I taught it for a decade and I loved it. And I still take it and teach it at times. It's so fun. But anyway, I like thought of myself as like, I've habit stacked all these things. Like I can nail the water, I can nail the, 10,000 steps a day. I can nail the getting my sleep. I can nail, doing my devotionals and working out 3 or 4 days a week at minimum. But then when you have a baby, it's like everything resets. And I had actually a fourth degree tear, which is the worst that you can have. It's for those that don't know, it's from one end to the other. And so I just remember after I delivered him, or as I like my doctor's sewing me up literally. And she was like, so, you did have a fourth degree tear. And just so you're aware, that means that you will not be able to walk past your mailbox for 6 weeks. And in my mind, it's like you just delivered a baby and you're hot and you're sweaty and you're all these things and you're like blood's everywhere, all the things. And then it's like that part didn't really register until I left the hospital. Then I was like, whoa, wait, what? I can't move my body because kind of like what you and I were talking about earlier, London, like exercise was such a coping mechanism for me at that point for stress. And so I was kind of like, well, then how do I start at ground zero? I didn't even know.
Yeah, I'm not sorry for the men listening. I think that the more that men can understand women and all the unique components of us, the better. So I'm not sorry. And I'm so glad that you shared that, because it is the real, the real thing. And so then what did you do? I know that before we pressed record, you mentioned that you did go through postpartum depression and that you would be open to sharing stuff about that. And I would love if you did, because I had an aunt that went through postpartum depression. And I mean, this was a long time ago, but I remember she came to live with my grandparents and they like had her in the back bedroom and it was like not talked about. And yeah, it's not my story to tell, so I don't want to let too much of that. But I had a firsthand experience. I was a young girl seeing my aunt not be the aunt that I knew that she was, like a whole different, like, yeah,
Yeah.
just like not the fun, loving, let's go do fun things type of aunt that I noticed. And then I also just remember my family. And I think that's just kind of the older generations too. It was like they would brush it under the rug and like not talk about it. And she was just sick and had to be in the back bedroom. And I just want anyone listening that's maybe gone through that to not feel like that they need to be in that air quotes back bedroom. So whatever you want to share about that experience, I would love for you to share.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that is one thing that I feel so passionate about sharing is even just making people more aware of it, London, because I do think that it's becoming more common now. But at the time going into the hospital, I had no idea that postpartum depression was a thing. And so initially, what had happened was, I had the baby, I had the fourth-degree tear. And, she told me you can't walk past the mailbox for 6 weeks. Whereas most people, when you're sent home from the hospital, they're like, we would love for you to start walking. The more you can be outside with your baby, the better, this, the other. And so it was really, really hard for me. I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram. London, are you? So I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. I find a lot of just delight in being productive and feeling like I'm accomplishing a lot. And all my friends call me the Energizer Bunny. That's just who I am to them. Like I'm full of life, full of energy, always on the go. And so then to be told, like, you just need to sit on the couch on this donut, and literally your only job is to feed and take care of the baby and just be inside. That was like a sucker punch to my soul just because I am such a people person. I am such a like, I want to be around and see and do everybody. I have FOMO. I'm just like an extrovert to my core. And so to just be at home was so, so hard. And then also, my oldest was not being able to gain enough weight from breastfeeding initially. I ended up actually accidentally drying up my milk supply, which I didn't even know that you could do. So I just had all these things that just kept compounding. And then the next thing I knew, I was like crying every day, almost, I mean, at minimum 2 or 3 times a day. And I just felt lost. Like I was like, who is this person? I don't recognize myself. I am not Heather Brown. I don't get to work out. I don't get to be outside. I'm not with my people. And when you have a tear that's that bad, you are asked to come back. I think it's for like a 2 week checkup for them to make sure that you're healing properly. And my doctor was actually one of my Pure Bar clients as well. And so she was like, how are you doing? And I really didn't even think that much about it. It was just the first thing that popped out of my mouth. I said, I just want to know when I'm going to feel like me again. And she goes, oh, well, that's actually a cardinal symptom of having postpartum depression. I'm going to write you this prescription and we'll just like, get you going. We'll get you taken care of and you'll be fine. And I kind of was like, whoa, whoa, what? I have postpartum depression and I need an antidepressant. Like, again, who is this and what's going on? And honestly, London, I didn't know then, obviously, as much as I know now. And I really wish that I would have pushed back and asked about, are there other options for like healthy lifestyle changes, or are there things that I can do to not get on an antidepressant? But again, you don't know what you don't know. And so I got on it, and I will say that, I mean, within, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, I really did start to feel more like myself again. And I felt like I kind of was able to like get out of the fog a little bit, if you will. And I told my mom and my husband at the time, I was like, I think that what is so scary is that I feel so unlike me that I just think like, am I gonna like forget that the baby needs something, or am I gonna like accidentally hurt the baby or myself? And so it's just completely irrational thoughts that were in my brain.
Yeah.
I don't know
And
if
it
you
must have been, well, so hard to then be like, oh, you have depression and here's a prescription, I feel like the duration of that, I mean, of course, you're recalling it, but usually it's a very fast appointment. It's just like this. And then you're like, oh, wait, but like, I didn't even get to share even more. I feel like that unpacking process is so important that oftentimes, yeah, I find myself and have for the last, 15 years looking through for natural solutions or things that were alternatives to just like, oh, this is what you have and this is what you get. I feel like that's
Yes.
such a fast process and you just are like stamped with this label of, oh, I have this and now I need to take this instead of, yeah, being able to have the space to unpack that a little bit more. So then what happened? How did you find yourself again? What did it feel like to find yourself again?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that this is so crazy because I talk all the time about meal planning, but honestly, I feel like meal planning was like the first start to what I've now fully developed as a Sunday reset. But meal planning was the first tangible thing that I thought, well, I know how to plan meals. I used to work for emails.com, which is one of the largest meal planning companies in the US. And I helped them with their social media and I wrote meal plans for two and this, that, and the other. But I thought, okay, that's something I can do that will serve my husband, will serve me well. It'll make sure we're getting good nutrition and we're not just like eating whatever is brought to us, that's fast food or whatever. So I just thought, okay, on Sundays, I want to start listening to a sermon online and I want to start writing our meal plan. And so it was like that first step honestly was such a game changer for me because again, it like gave me, and I don't want to say purpose because obviously like meal planning isn't like a massive purpose, but it gave me this thing to do that wasn't just about like breastfeeding or like my new role as mom, but it was something that I'd done prior to having babies that I was able to still own, if that makes sense. So I started meal planning and literally my husband and I's anniversary was only about a week after I had the baby. And so we broke the rules and actually went to Sprouts because Lynn and I were talking about that we like to shop at Sprouts. And I remember like pushing the grocery cart down the aisle and being like, there are grandmothers that are walking faster than me right now, like on their walkers, because I was so like close to how I could like walk my feet or shuffle or what have you. And I mean, I just like boohooed the whole way home on our anniversary from that grocery store trip because I was like, I'm just so broken. Like, and so if you hear this and that's how you feel, let me just encourage you to look into some alternative methods for what to do for postpartum depression. And let me encourage you with what Lennon and I talked about earlier, too, just to like get outside in the natural sunlight, even if you're just sitting on your porch or you're swinging on a porch swing or just doing something to be outside in the sunlight. It's just such a game changer. Um, but then once I did that meal planning, then it kind of started to open up other thoughts of things that I could do from the couch. I was like, okay, I could also start to text my growth group or my small group. That's kind of like Sunday school if you're not familiar, and just say, hey, I'm really struggling and I would so love it if someone just could come visit me once a week, whether it be to bring coffee or like, I can brew a pot of coffee for you guys or if you want to stop by and meet the baby. But I just knew that I needed somebody to come into my house and to have that sense of community and belonging again. So
Mhm.
then my
And
Sundays.
you Well, and you asked for it, which is so amazing because so many people would sit at home and be like, no one's visiting me and who are my friends? And that's like huge of like, okay, what do I need? And then let me ask for it instead of hoping that people mind read among their busy, crazy life of what I need. So keep going. But I really wanted to highlight that because it's so important to know what you need. And when you figure that out, if you need something from someone else, you have to ask for it. If you expect them just to figure it out and deliver, you're going to be waiting for a long time?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. And I do think that community is so huge. I think that a lot of times London talks a lot about mind, body, and spirit health too. Community is such a part of that. Whether you even want to believe it or not, and whether you're an introvert or not, it's like community is so huge. And that's how we were designed. Like we grew up, even, from the very beginning back in the Stone Ages of like being in tribes and gathering around fires and like, you need community, whether you want to believe it or not. So if you don't have that, I just want to encourage you to step outside of your comfort zone and find it somehow. But all that to say, I just slowly started to build and build until I was able to do the meal plan. I was able to then have somebody coming into my house and spending time with me at least 1 to 2 times a week. And then really, I mean, Eric was so amazing. He tried to do everything that he could while still working, obviously, to support me. But it also, I think, was such a reckoning of my faith as well, London, because I think that I realized, ooh, I actually sometimes utilize my health and my working out and all these things as like this idol in my life, or like as this crutch, when really ultimately, like, God just wants me to come to him and be honest with what I'm struggling with and what I'm, you know, not able to do. Like, I couldn't maintain it all on my own. And I also think that I was so overwhelmed and lost that I like didn't even know how to come to him. I was like, I can't go to church. I can't, like, I don't have the energy to like open up my Bible and try to understand it right now because there's this baby sucking on me and it hurts still to breastfeed and I'm bleeding and I'm uncomfortable and all these things. And so that's when I really started to lean into just worship music and finding worship music that I could just turn on, on my Alexa, just to like uplift my heart and my spirit when I didn't have the energy to like do the deep dives and to be reading and those kind of things. And so I think really just starting to like puzzle piece those few things. And then obviously the medication I'm sure helps some too. And then just getting that support system in place. And then I finally hit that 6 week mark where my doctor was like, okay, you're cleared to work out again. But it's like really having that experience did so much more for me than just like having a baby or just having this reckoning with, how I had PPD or how I had the 4th degree tear. It was like, it really gave me so much clarity and comfort and knowing how I wanted to serve mamas going forward in my business. And so that's why I'm just so passionate about it. And any chance I get to talk about postpartum depression, I want to shine a light on it, because if you don't know what you're up against, then how do you even know how to start to combat it?
And I love what you said in the beginning in terms of like a tip for all women was like one step at a time. And then as I hear you telling your stories about all the struggle and the pain and how you know, pulled yourself out of it, it was like one step at a time. Okay, I'm going to watch a sermon and then I'm going to make our meal plan and then I'm going to text one person and invite them to come over. And we don't have to get into this, but I'm sure when you got you're the green light to work out, it was also one step at a time and, reconnecting with your body and all of that because so yeah, I love moments where we practice what we preach and we do what we say and then help others do that too. And I also love that you said yeah, like just leaning into like worship music. And there's one song that I love by Jeremy Camp that's called Keep Me in the Moment. I don't know if you know this one, but
It's
it
a
says like,
great one.
oh Lord, keep me in the moment. Help me live with my eyes wide open because I don't want to miss what you have for me. And I love those lyrics because it's just like being in the present moment and being in pursuit of like right now is so huge for my life. And